Got it.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the October 22nd LLCD board meeting. Once again, here we are in our Zoom format. Gosh, I do miss seeing you all in person and truly hope that one day we will get back to that. And we miss seeing all of our freeholders as well. Hi, Deb. Okay, Mary Jane will not join us tonight. Rules are the same. Roll call votes when they are needed, and there are a couple. And just raise your hand if you would have something to contribute, and I will do my best to make sure I see you and recognize you so you can speak freely. All right. With that, call the meeting to order, of course, and we need to talk about approving the September 24th, 2020 board meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at them? Michael Plitzing?
I would make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Right. Thank you. Laura?
Second.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes as presented. Any other discussion? Okay, if not, pardon me?
I was not at the beginning of that meeting, and so
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Did we note that in the minutes? I may have, I see that we had Debbie doing some of Mike's reporting in his absence, but I'm not sure we did say specifically that Mike was not there till about halfway through, I think, because of your fire run. So we might make that adjustment. That'd be all right with everybody? All right,
Yeah.
it has been moved and seconded that we approve those with that correction. All those in favor, we'll go down the row. Michael K.
Aye.
Laura.
Aye.
Mike Blackwell.
Aye.
Les.
Aye.
Debbie. And I am an aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have a discussion of the Nob Hill mobile home park, and we have representatives here that Adam will introduce to help lead us through that discussion.
Yes, I have Ryan Casper Cushman with Monroe County Health Department, and we have Beth Boland from the Indiana State Department of Health. I asked them to join on the meeting today after we did an information request regarding the Nob Hill Trailer Park on North Shore Drive and some issues that we've been having with bacteria and kind of everything that's been going on there. And I know it's kind of been an ongoing item for us as well. So I'd like to go ahead and I don't know if I'm going to start off with questions or if I want to let you guys take it off and we can just kind of do a quick intro on what's been happening in the past and where we are with the state and county as far as follow-up. I don't know if you'd mind taking that, Beth, to see what where you guys are at. I know there's been complaints regarding septic issues was the biggest one there. And really just kind of want to talk about what remedial actions are going to happen and kind of what timeframes we're looking at, and kind of go from there.
Okay, we have issued them an order that they have to have a communal sewer something out there. I've actually been in touch with their engineer yesterday. They are looking at a treatment plant at this point. They are having troubles with all the setbacks from this and that and streams and property lines. So they're having a hard time finding a site that would be suitable for septic. So at this time, they're going forward with probably a package plant, I believe. So
No, very nice.
they have a deadline of the 30th to get me something in writing.
All right. And then Ryan, are you guys kind of involved with this as well? I'm assuming since at the state levels here, probably most of that enforcement and act mandating will be from the state and not Monroe County.
Yeah, I think for the most part, especially in regards to the most recent orders that the state had sent out in regards to a combined sewage treatment solution for that place. In my note, I've been working this case since 2016 when it was owned by a local guy, and Norm Forgwitz was his name, and I forgot what the name of the LLC was at that time, but the county was actually getting ready to sue him at that time, and that's when he sold it to a current owner who's out of Orem, Utah. And we have been sending mail communication to Orem, Utah for some months, maybe over a year. And I've never spoken with the actual owner. A man named Robeson Pratt is listed as the managing member of this LLC. I've spoken to one person who is actually with his company named Cassidy Johnson, and that was back in January 28th. It was the only communication I got that wasn't from a subcontractor of theirs, and that was in response to a $500 fine and another notice and order that I sent to Robeson Pratt. And that fine was for expanding, altering, or maintaining a campground without a local permit to do so. They'd operated the whole year of 2019 and had done expansions, added sites, added unapproved holding tanks. There was quite a bit of activity going on without any permitting or regulation happening. I haven't been out there since that January date. COVID-19 kind of turned all of the health departments on their heads, and ours was no exception. And so duties had been shifted, and I just haven't been able to get up there. It's pretty much me who does all the complaints in Monroe County. Thankfully, I've got allies in the state like Beth who can step in and assist on these bigger issues. So I think for the most part, unless the state needs the help or we've got egregious discharges, we're probably on the county level going to back off enforcement and try to allow them to come to a satisfactory solution for wastewater there. If not, I need to meet with our legal counsel, Marjorie Rice, with the Monroe County Legal to talk about possibly disconnecting water service to the whole place. But we'd like to avoid that if at all possible.
Thank you, guys. Are there any questions from the board?
Yeah, Beth. So when you said you were talking to their engineer, is that just a subcontractor, or is she or that person somebody with that company?
This person was finally somebody straight out of Utah. It was what they call their, it wasn't an accountant. It was a bigger word than that. He's essentially their money guy. So he was putting together, the costs, what they decided that it's probably more cost effective to go with the treatment plant than try to do a commercial septic system.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I guess I'm kind of skeptical though after reading the documentation that Adam circulated that goes back several years. It just sounds like, well, I think when this Miss Rice wrote to them and he said, oh yeah, there's only a couple of campers there occasionally. I mean, man, that's a flat out lie. I mean, the place is full of campers and it has been for years. So I guess my thought is they're not to be trusted. And, I guess I would encourage you to not cut them any breaks. I mean, if they give us a runaround again, let's cut the water off and be done with it because it's polluting the lake. I mean, big time. And I think Laura has put up with this and actually has to smell it personally on a daily basis. And it's a pretty serious problem and it's been allowed to go on forever. Mm-hmm. So I would strongly encourage strict action and don't cut them any slack.
That's why they got a due date of the 30th. This was kind of their last chance. And now we have a new manager again. So I'm somewhat encouraged because they did take care of they were having a trash solid waste issue that they jumped on pretty quick the last time. But I'm with you, they've lied to me so long, I'm sick of hearing it too. So hopefully we will take action if it fails. If I don't get something by the 30th that shows they've contracted and have, bids out to do this work, then yeah, we're going to take it to enforcement.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, because it almost seems like a shell corporation. I mean, it's like no one's ever talked to this person. Is this guy really real?
Mm-hmm. That's how I've been.
They're in Utah. I mean, this whole thing sounds fishy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Pratt does exist. He actually, I believe he's a dual citizen of the United States and Mexico and competed on I think it was the 2000 Mexico Olympic pole vaulting team. Just a fun fact.
Item for a lull in conversation. Laura, you had a comment?
I just want to say thank you, Beth, for being involved. We started calling the state we came here in 2003, 2005, we started calling the state. We were working with Leanna Retzner at that time, who said that she was taking care of everything. We've been involved in this since 2005, trying to get something done. So thank you for finally getting involved and push hard.
Thank you. Part of that is a change in bosses. The supervisor back then was Mike Hoover, and he retired. Now we have Mike Mettler, who's a little bit more of a go-getter. So
thank you.
And you guys have helped us also with your water samples and, letting us, I mean, if nobody complains, nothing changes. So that actually helps.
Debbie, did you have a question?
I did. I think it was indicated that you worked with a previous owner and that they had a threatened lawsuit, and so he sold it. So I'm just kind of curious, when he sold it, was it disclosed to this LLC that purchased it, and is that creating any issue?
I don't know if that was disclosed, but no one has raised that as a concern.
Okay.
So I think that the price was an as-is price, and I do recall that this is just going back to my memory. I think that there were some representatives who came into the Monroe County Health Department ahead of the purchase to do some due diligence.
Okay.
And I spoke with two people in person at that time and said, "Oh yes, we have an outstanding case against this property. It's got wastewater treatment concerns and discharge cases, and we were in fact going to begin litigation on it." So I think that those folks were from the Utah LLC at that time, and so I believe that they were aware of it to some degree, but I don't know if I never have seen a seller's disclosure form.
Okay. And I guess my follow-up question, you mentioned that there have been a lot of expansions out there. I think in the last few months, I kind of drove around all back there. Do you mean these expansions have happened since the ownership under Utah? Or maybe Lori, you know that because you're right there almost.
It has been.
Yeah, so the new owners paved all the roads.
Right.
We're doing electrical panel work, adding lots, and installing unapproved holding tanks.
Okay.
At least.
Well, I just, I'm glad we're on it now, but to me, we're all woefully derelict in our duties. I mean, because I know we've been coming out here since 2003 and we've owned since 2005, and it's been a horrible situation that's polluting our lake. So, I mean, it's already all been said, but is there anything that we as a district need to do? Do we need to sue? Do we need to write a letter? I mean, if you need us to do anything, I guess I'm just saying, please let us know because we're sick of it.
Well, it certainly can't hurt if you send letters and if you guys have an attorney, it might be something for you to explore whether or not there's any benefit to filing like a civil lawsuit. If you want, I can send the Monroe County's attorney's information over to you. Her name is Margie Rice, and she represents the health department in these kind of matters. And I'm sure she'd be happy to speak with you or your group.
Well, I'll let the board decide on that. But to me, I think it would be an action worth taking. Talking at least to our attorneys about it, at least filing some kind of complaint.
So what would be the preferred way, to a letter to the state or the county, or both?
Both.
Yeah, probably both. Any angle you can take, I think, would help.
Okay, thank you.
Laura, I have a question for you, and I don't mean for you to name any names, but you and I both have friends that live in that division. What are some of those folks saying? Are they in any way upset about this, aware of it, able to help us in any way? I mean, I realize the onus would be on the owner of the property, who you guys are appropriately attempting to find. But what do you hear on the street from the folks that actually live there and are going to be suffering if we've got to take drastic measures?
Right. So in the past, when Norm Forgeit's owned the trailer park, any upgrades in the trailer park, be it power or any, water, whatever, he just pushed that off onto the tenants, which, they're renting, they don't own, but he was making them pay for the changes. The concern is they're aware of the problem. The concern is that the owners will just, they've already tripled the rates over there, and they're concerned that they're just going to, whatever they have to pay for to make this plant appear, to put that in, they're going to spread that out over the 100 sites over there to make them pay for it. They are aware of it. They just don't want to pay for changes to something they don't own.
Well, they probably won't have a choice. I mean, they're going to have some kind of additional assessment or something. I mean, personally, Pam, I get the issue that you're bringing up, but it's just horrible for our lake. So
I don't disagree. I was wondering if they could be of any help, and that's why I asked Laura what I did. It sounds like they're kind of there hoping for something to happen that doesn't involve their wallets, and I understand that too, but it is what it is. Go ahead, Laura.
I agree, Debbie, that there will be assessments, and what happens in that case is the people will leave and new people will come in, and they'll be fine with those rates because that's normal to them. That's what's been happening throughout these rate increases over there since the new owners came in.
Okay.
It will have to be done, and they will have to pay, and there'll just be a change. But I don't think they're going to step in and help us because, again, they know that they're going to be held responsible for those changes, and they'll probably leave anyway.
And I wasn't in any way, Debbie, suggesting that we not go forward, but there's always a lot of things involved. But
no,
yeah, that's not a good scenario any way you slice it. All right.
Agreed.
Any other questions for our visitors? Michael B?
I just want to clarify. So after October 30th, you're going to shut their water off if they don't comply?
No, that's my deadline.
And you're going to shut, what is the penalty?
If we don't have what we want on the 30th, then I forward it to the attorney who will set up administrative hearings and discuss an agreed order or something to that effect to get it done.
To a judge?
Yes, it'd have to go to the attorney general.
Okay, so this is not an immediate fix.
Not yet,
Okay, thank you.
but it is the first step we have to take in the enforcement.
And I understand the route. I just wanted to know, and you've answered my question. I thank you very much.
Okay.
What does the board feel in terms of involving our attorney? Do you want to do that now? Do you want to see what happens vis-a-vis the deadline and get a report back from Beth and then move at that time? I mean, it's a phone call or two, but what would you like? What would you like us to do?
I mean, I would kind of recommend that we see where it goes. I mean, we have both the authoritative figures right here and the entities that would be enforcing that on the call with us. So I'd be interested to see what happens, after their deadline before we get our attorneys involved in that.
And we're talking 8 days, right? This is the 22nd. Yep.
Because our letters and complaints will be going right back to Beth and Ryan. So it'd be nice to see what kind of actions are taken before we start getting any cost incurred from it, I think.
Is the board in agreement with that thought in terms of giving it the week that it has to get to a point where it's going to go one way or another?
I would concur with that, in that if they don't provide some action plan to Beth and respond, then she will have additional documentation from us saying, to support her case as she moves it up the pipeline.
Laura, you're nodding.
Yeah, I agree.
Mike B, are you all right with that?
I want to go back to Ryan. Ryan, maybe I misunderstood. Did you say that you would shut their water off?
The termination of the water service is kind of a last resort that we have at our disposal in wastewater discharge situations, and something like this where I think that the entire park is on one service. I'm not sure though. It may be different. They may have different meters for different sites. It would be something where I definitely need to get the backing of the Monroe County attorney before I would do that, and possibly even get the signature of a judge, given that it would impact so many different units there. But that is an option that we can take.
Okay, so we're still at the mercy of a judge.
I would, in this, sometimes I do have water services disconnected without going through the courts. In this case, I wouldn't recommend, it's not something I would do without first going through our attorney. If I have single,
yeah, I'm not recommending it either.
yeah,
So
just the scale of it is something that I think it would be best go before a judge.
My last question is, so the owner that lives in Utah, he's actually in our conservancy district. Is that correct?
No.
No, the park is not in the conservancy district.
Park is not in the conservancy. So
Correct.
the district goes around the park.
The north
No,
side
up to-
of
up-
North Shore Drive is not in the conservancy district, just the south side of it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Any further thoughts?
I do, Pam.
Okay, Debbie.
I'm okay with waiting the week. I guess, it seems like it would be prudent for us. We're under a lease agreement with the city of Bloomington that we're supposed to ensure water quality. And we are the ones being damaged by this. We're the ones most affected. So, I just think, hopefully we put something in writing at some point to try to move it along, because we're trying to protect the water quality.
That's fair. Well, Adam, I presume you'll be the first to hear whether these deadlines are met. Beth and Ryan, you'd be communicating with him. So if you will tip me off, please, and the board, as soon as you know what's happened or what hasn't at the end of the month, we'll go from there.
I have one more question. I had one more question for Beth, I guess. So they submit a written plan and they say, this is what we're going to do, and they get it to you by October 30th. What is, in your view, is reasonable time frame? If they say, well, it's going to take a year to do this, or, I guess it's one thing getting the document, but when are they going to have something in place?
We'll have to discuss that with them. I would say a year, 2 years is probably realistic. The main thing is we want them to get a permit so we can start placing new holding tanks and get rid of all the drums and discharges to the creeks. But we need something, that says this is our plan. This is, this is going to go to a lift station, which is going to pump up to this treatment plant before, we're going to allow these holding tanks to go in. So,
well, what we need to consider how this plan bakes into this sewer district we're thinking of forming or have formed. Has anybody thought about that?
That's not really ours, so I'm not sure that's relevant for our conversation.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and that's clear on the other side of the lake. I don't know how feasible that would be,
Yeah, they are starting over.
I'm sorry. But if it's a possibility for them to connect, we will make them connect if it's reasonable. I have a similar situation in Bean Blossom going on. And with some of the grant work, it might be good to have them included because of the low income housing, or I don't know if it's that low anymore. But the mobile home park and Bill Monroe's are helping them with their regional sewer board because of that housing status. So, but either way, we just want, what you want is to get the sewage out of the lake.
Thank you.
One of the things I would suggest, though, if we ultimately they don't respond within the 8 days, is having a conversation with our attorney as far as, what case law is out there, because we'd have to go the civil route if we were doing any lawsuits. And what case law, is there any merit in going after that? What's the probability of doing it? Because obviously if we can put pressure on them where it becomes more costly for them to have multiple cases going, one, legal proceedings with the state, potentially with the county, and then a civil proceeding with us, maybe that can help help move things along. But I would only want to go down the civil route if there's a viable route to go down. So that's a conversation with our attorney. But I mean, one of those that I think we have after we know whether they've submitted anything to Beth.
Well, we thank you for your efforts, both of you. And the good news about Zoom meetings is you don't have to embarrassedly walk out of a room. If you'd like to leave the meeting, you just push a button. We wouldn't expect you to sit through the rest of our agenda tonight, but we do appreciate your efforts, and we want to work together finally and get something done.
Okay, well, thank you for your help too.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll look forward to hearing from you in just a little over a week, either way.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a
All
great
right.
evening.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
You too.
All right.
All right. Next up.
Yep. Go ahead, Adam. It's yours.
Next, we have Deb Schmucker with Cornerstone, who's been working with us on our park master plan. We have had a public hearing. I'm not sure how many have had a chance to review that video, but we will have some of the similar aspects of it in this. We're kind of go over, from the overarching view, looking at the different elements, kind of some of the costing elements broken down into the pieces. And then ultimately the goal from today would be a quick discussion at the end to talk about our prioritization of the different elements that we would like for the final executive summary. So what we'll do is do a presentation first, and we'll have a little bit of discussion afterwards. And hi, Deb, thank you for coming.
Well, my pleasure. This will be a little more fun conversation than the last one. So we'll get you out on a high note. How about that? Let me share my screen here and get the PowerPoint up. Let's see here. Where did my other? There we go. Now I got to swap screens here real quick. All right. So this is the overall site master plan that has been updated based on our public comment and input. So not anything that was a radical change, but we showed some prairie restoration and included the existing hiking trail that's over here on the Boys and Girls Club. But really tonight, what I'm going to do is kind of take you, for lack of a better way to describe it, kind of clockwise around the park, starting at the gatehouse area, and just start to put some numbers and cost estimating. Now, I'm going to give you the big old caveat that we are in an extremely strange time of pricing with lots of issues with, getting lumber, and prices have escalated, and some of that will come down over time, hopefully once the worst of COVID is over. But in the meantime, what I wanted to do is just kind of start getting you thinking. But the first thing I wanted to do is, one of the things that the task force and I have discussed was just an architectural aesthetic for future park buildings. And you'll see the existing shelter house there on your left that has what's called an ashlar limestone pattern. So that element of matching the roof pitch, of trying to pull in that base stone, using the fiber cement boarding, and then just trying to create a little bit of interest from a wood truss in different ways that we could incorporate that, whether it might be the gatehouse or the restroom building in the future, another potential shelter house, whatever the case may be. So that was a really clean look, but it was something that was simplified, park-like, but started to tie all the buildings together within the park over a period of time as you might go forth. And that includes even something as small as the gatehouse, which is where we're going to head next, which is the north end of the park. And just to remember that north is flipped on your screen, so it'll always be to the right, just in order to get everything on. So last year, Adam worked on a rough floor plan for the gatehouse, which you see below. So what we did was we just started to look at what those costs might be in today's dollars, a little bit of extra site work, concrete pad, those kinds of things. But again, just starting to put numbers. So when you see widen and pave entrance, that's the lanes on either side of the gatehouse. What I would add in a caveat is, anytime you're doing any kind of asphalt paving or stone work, the more you can if you're not doing the work in-house, but you're doing that work with a general contractor, quantity and pricing comes down in unit pricing, the more work there is for them. So in this particular case, I outlined the area right around the gatehouse, but it might be that we want to do that drive work maybe with the boat launch when you were doing all of that together. But just to start getting you thinking and how these different components start to put together in pricing. And I know Adam and I discussed that the gatehouse and the task force kind of verified that the gatehouse is a pretty high priority. So we wanted to kind of get a handle on what that might cost. Then as we go just working our way, and I'm going to turn on a little red laser pointer here, but as we just kind of work our way around the maintenance building and adding on to that, and you see a potential example of obviously a pole barn, but a pole barn structure of about 24 by 80 is about a $60,000 to $80,000 adventure. Again, that is today's dollars, just something to give you a reference point. Moving over to the boat launch area, this area, as we've shown, would become more formalized and be paved. We'd widen out this road and then provide some extra temporary boat staging area for when you may have pulled your boat out of the water. But then we would also, and Adam told me the staff could do this in-house, would slide the boat slip around to the side there, but then we would actually almost double the width. And that would be a concrete surface that would hold up better with the water and the waves, et cetera, from a maintenance perspective. But we'd almost double that in width to allow a little more ease of accessibility for boats in and out. So you just start to see those numbers starting to play out down here. And I just tried to describe what those are. Then as you kind of just continue to move around, you see a pathway there that could be a stone trail, that could be just a footpath. But then we kind of demarcated an area for a park office, maybe 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. That was one of the hardest numbers to come up with because right now it's just housing prices and building supplies are just through the roof. In a typical scenario, that's usually probably 160 to 175,000, depending on the complexity of the building and how defined and what kind of finishes you would have. But it just starts to give you a feel and a marker for what that is. And then there would be some site work involved in that. The existing park office, just for a little bit of reference, is this small little square right here, and we'd be shifting that over. As we work our way further into the site, I called it the east end, but more over into the park proper area. So we've talked a little bit about renovating the existing shelter. Some of that work would be in-house work that could start as early as this winter, removing some of the shutters and the plywood on the shelter, and just generally trying to open up the building and make it more of an open air shelter. Some of the work right around the volleyball court would be the same type, could be done in-house. Might need some new sand and some more edging and that kind of thing to more formally define it. And then even in the future, maybe opening up some of the window areas within the shelter, potentially making those more of an open doorway to just continue to open up and lighten up the existing shelter. You've got the gaming area that's up here at the northern end. Those were things like horseshoes, shuffleboard, potentially it could be a bocce ball court, but that you could work with your individual public to see kind of specifically when you're ready to do that kind of work, what that might be. The shade kites are the individual, they're like a 15 by 15 shade sail. They run by the time you put concrete with them, and roughly about $9,500 by the time you put concrete footers and the shade sail portion on it itself. So I showed those various different shade structures. And then as you work your way down, there is a children's play equipment. Play equipment can run anywhere depending on how big your unit is, from 200,000 on up. You've got a couple of shade structures again, and obviously your playground surfacing. Poured in place is sometimes almost half the cost of your actual play structure. So I would anticipate that probably be more of the wood 5-bar type facility that would be easier for the guys to handle. The poured in place is great, but it's really expensive. One of the areas I didn't talk about was we talked about expanding and really creating a nice concrete patio area off the existing shelter, just to allow a different place for people to congregate, maybe a couple picnic benches. And then we've got the stone walking path that comes around here and ties around the perimeter there, and then eventually would tie into this new accessible pathway, which would also lead to those rental shade structures that we'd mentioned. And then I called it general site work, and that would be basically paving the existing parking area and expanding it. You could do it just in stone, or eventually you could asphalt. I went ahead for just the purposes of pricing to give you a rough idea what that might cost. Asphalt prices have escalated in part hugely because of all the NDOT work that's going on right now throughout the state, and you're all familiar with that with State Road 37. And then you've got the beach area expansion. Again, some of that Adam and his crew could do, but expanding the beach, those extra 3 shade structures. And this is actually a paved, I would anticipate that would probably be concrete, just because of the aspect of trying to get an asphalt piece of equipment in and out of there for a longevity perspective. We're going to work our way down to the restroom building and the boat slips and the ramp area. And because this area was one that really was going to change what it looked like, I thought maybe a perspective sketch might help everybody in the public get a better understanding maybe of what was being proposed. So in the background over here, you can see one of the shade kites that would be up closer to the playground. We suggested the restroom building here in the background, and you would be coming down the hill. So you can see a couple people there as you kind of walk down the hill. Eventually, about right in here, you would take off and head towards the beach. And then you would turn the corner in the, because that area is so steep, and to make it accessible, you had to make it really long to flatten out the grade so that we can make it accessible for wheelchairs. You would come down behind the observation deck so that you could get on the observation deck. We moved the entrance to that because as I got to looking at the kind of the topo, this could become a really towering structure and added expense to make the piers higher. But this is an observation deck. You could fish from it. People could sit, just enjoy a view of the water. And then eventually you can make your way down over here to a gangway that would make its way down and across over to the boat slips. If you were able-bodied and wanted a quick direct route to the restrooms, there was a set of stairs that was included that would go up the hillside to the backside of the restroom building. The restroom building itself, we looked at putting together, in particular, this is kind of a design build. They would cringe if I said the word prefabricated, but to a certain degree it is. But 6 unisex kind of bathroom rooms with 3 on one side, 3 on the other. They're all unisex and they all have doors to the outside. Storage on one end, and then a little bit of a 6-foot, 8-foot porch overhang with the roof, just to allow somebody, if they were meeting somebody or to take, if it started raining unexpectedly, allow a user just to stand there and sheltered until they could get back to their boat or back to the parking lot. The pathway, the ramp down, I indicated in concrete, in part just because of the stability, the longevity, and the long-term maintenance. We broke out the deck, assuming that that would be probably a synthetic decking material, again, for longevity and maintenance. The stairs to the restroom, again, the same thing. The gangway, the ramp, and the boat slips. This area would require some additional site work and grading just because of all the different aspects of that hillside. And then that trail connection, that there was a trail connection shown that goes back beyond and over to the parking lot off back over to the west. So that would just be a stone connection. But again, just trying to tie it all together from that different perspective. This area would be the point. The point really, we didn't suggest too many changes, but we added a couple more shade structures, some being more the shade kites like this photo here demonstrates, and then potentially some larger gathering shelters. And again, trying to just incorporate that aesthetic that we talked about, just tying all the different buildings together. Obviously the drive areas, we weren't suggesting paving there, but more of a just adding some stone and better stabilizing the existing drives that are there today. And then as we kind of wander our way back around towards the gatehouse, You can start to see some of the prairie restoration areas. This drive area here would be paved up and through this area so that you keep the main drive ready to go. The boat parking area is obviously this section here. Your car parking is over in here. And we did show a future potential rental building spot if somewhere down the line you might have a vendor or someone that would want to partner with you. And then just some hiking trails to connect back into the existing trails that are over on the Boys and Girls Club. So that is a kind of a high level view, but it really starts to put some costs with it together just to help inform you as the board and the task force, and just really trying to understand what those things might cost, and then obviously allow you to start to think about a game plan based on what your priorities might be. So I'd be happy to take any questions or flip back to any slides if anyone's got a specific question.
Adam, will we copy of this PowerPoint? I was trying to jot costs down as quickly as I could, but
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, we can share that. Absolutely.
Okay.
I have a PDF for you that I'll send to Adam.
Okay.
Thank you. Where are my park gurus? Michael, Kay, and Les? Are you? I don't see you on my screen anymore, but let me see here. You guys have any thoughts, since this is your area?
Well, you know, we've seen it and talked about it, and so I guess I'd kind of like to see what the board says.
All right.
You
Okay.
know, we're kind of liking it, you know, and want to
Yeah.
move forward on the gatehouse, but
Okay.
you know, we've already kind of discussed it, so.
All right.
I think, and just to give a little bit of my perspective, I'm very much with Les and our task force. You know, we gave a little additional direction after we saw the first draft, and I think what Deb's put together is a nice plan for the park. It takes advantage of the topography. I mean, when you look at the property in just flat and not thinking about the topography, you can think you can do so much more with it. But when you start looking at some of the slopes we have, it limits, you know, what we can do, and adds, quite frankly, to some of the cost, especially to get the accessibility that we want to the beach and to some of the other areas. You know, some feedback we've heard from the public in some of our public meetings, even before we did the master plan, was some interest in preserving that original shelter. And the more I looked at it, and Deb's assessed it as well, is structurally it's not that bad. Right now it's kind of grimy, but by opening it up, I think it makes it a much more attractive thing. It's the only significant architectural feature we currently have in the park today. And it's on Monroe County's national, or not national, but Monroe County's historical markers are on it. If you go around the lakeside of it, you'll see the plaque for that. So I think it is kind of cool to be able to preserve that history of the park. And then that became sort of the design aesthetic for the other buildings, the other structures, whether it's the gatehouse, the new office building, the restroom facilities, and even the shelters, the more constructed shelters, keeping that same feel so that when you're in the park, you don't have what we have today, which is, you know, no two buildings really feel like they belong together. They're just sort of a mismatch. So, but what we wanted was something that's like tying off of that limestone that we have, but recognizing we can't do full limestone buildings. That would be too cost prohibitive, but just a little bit of touch of that limestone so that we're bringing that across, keeping those same roof lines and sort of general appearance of the shelter, but also making sure that it's not overstated, because really the beauty of that park is the lake setting and the nature that's in it. So, you know, they're attractive buildings, but they're sort of a simple elegance so that you're really more focused on the environment around it as opposed to the building. It just more sort of blends into it. And then having the trails that are created to tie everything together so that if you want to walk the park, I mean, right now you can, but there's not really a designated place. Here we've provided a pathway that for our walkers, that they have a place where they feel like they can go and see the different areas. So I think from a park design perspective, Deb's done a nice job and tied it together and kept that focus on what really is special about it, and also focusing on what drives the revenue. The revenue is driven by the boat access. The revenue is driven by the beach access. And then supplementing it with some better rental opportunities for the shelters to supplement and to provide additional revenue opportunities. So just my thoughts.
Thank you. Other board members? Debbie?
Well, I'm glad you added that on at the end about earned revenue or revenue opportunities. That it's a beautiful plan, and I think you've done a wonderful job. And I do recognize, just in doing some work we've done, that costs have doubled. The price tag, I would hate to add it all up, but if you did the whole shoot, it was a lot more expensive than I thought it would be to do some of these things. So I guess I think that the challenge is going to be prioritizing. And when we started off and we kind of worked around the park, I get that you were kind of going around, but I do think we have to have a balance of, trying to balance the things that our users are going to want, versus the infrastructure things, the new office, the maintenance building, the this, the that. So I think that's going to really be kind of our challenge. But I loved it. I guess my other question would be too, Adam, like we know that park admissions drive revenue. We haven't increased our boating fees for a long time, but it seems like we're going to have to make some adjustments to figure out where we can, get some of these funds, to do this and capacity. Do we really, I know we're expanding the beach area. Are we creating more capacity to be able to have the park have more visitors such that we can generate more revenue? Those are my initial thoughts. I hadn't really looked at it too much other than the public hearing tape.
Yeah, and with the beach expansion, I really think we are, and additional parking, open it up to where we can have more users at the park to generate revenue and additional opportunities if we were to put rental shade structures along the beach there. And I really think that'd be a good focus to look at increasing usership at the park, because that doesn't necessarily add on to congestion in the boating and in the lakes. I think it's a really good area to look at expanding the beach. A lot of that we can do in-house with expanding the beach to allow more people, and that's more of a congestion thing. And as Michael said, really the boat ramp and then the beach area are going to be the two biggest revenue generating ideas. And I know there is a little bit of, not to go in discussion, I mean, I really don't think we want to increase revenue, but we don't want to increase the amount of boats on the water by a drastic amount. So that's part of why the ramp expansion, we're looking at being able to have people come on and off the water quicker so we can have a higher turnaround without necessarily expanding the parking extravagantly, so there's not a ton more boats on the water. But it would allow us here at the park a lot of times on real busy days, since it's a single ramp and it gets so backed up. And we've had lines almost every weekend past the Boys and Girls Club in the summertime. So just being able to have a smoother flow of traffic, I think would increase revenue, because we can get people in and out quicker and just have a higher turnover.
Is that ramp designed, it looks it, designed to accommodate two boats at the same time backing in the water? Is it designed to safely do that?
Unless I'm the one backing the boat in, and then I'll need the entire thing. So
Correct. Me too, Michael. I'm right with you. Get out of the way. But that is the dimensions are appropriate for two at a time. Yeah. Les?
Yeah. So one thing to keep in mind too, I mean, this is a perfect world scenario, and the price tag indeed is shocking, but we're just gonna kind of hit it pieces at a time. I mean, obviously we've got tons of things. We got a lot of irons in the fire. We got, the dredging issue going on. That's going to be expensive, and so on and so forth. And so, this is long term, and it's a guide. And who knows, things will be changing as we go along, maybe, little tweaks here and there. But it does at least give us something to go on. And as Deb mentioned, prioritizing. It's like, okay, what do we want to do next? What's the biggest priority now? If we knock out part A, then what's the next thing we want to do, and so on. So I just caution everybody to kind of keep that in mind, and don't let the price tag scare you off. I mean, it's still something we need to work on for the long term.
Sure.
It's
Yeah,
a
it's very much.
wonderful, it's a wonderful plan. And not to interrupt, but the other thing to keep in mind too, Les, to your point, is looking at structures or things that we want to do that we could raise the funds for and get named opportunities like the Eberly Shelter or the Ladyman or the, I mean, there might be things that we can point to that we could give naming opportunities and we could fundraise for it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's good.
No, and I think those are all very valid points, both what Les and Debbie have said. Is it definitely is a phase plan. Most park master plans, regardless of whether you're a smaller entity like Lake Lemon or a more affluent entity like Carmel Clay Parks, our master plans are long-term plans. I mean, in the best scenario, it's usually 5 years. In many scenarios, it's 10 to 20 years before you fully implement the plan. But it gives you that roadmap as to what you're doing. So it's in an organized manner. It's phased. I guess I'm probably the only one other than Deb that's not shocked by the pricing, because one of the things that most people don't recognize is that when you're building a park, they're public structures. Residential construction right now is very expensive, but when even in the best of times, it's always more expensive when you're building these public facilities, because instead of building them for, maybe 5 people in your family, you're building it for hundreds of people that do not care for it the same way as your family does. So that always adds to the construction cost, but it very much is a phased and allows us to better prioritize how we do things.
I, for one, love the style that you've outlined. I've been a proponent of trying to save that shelter house in some manner while upgrading it, but the rest of that style that you've recommended, I think it's perfect. I don't know how others feel about it, but it still says rustic to me, but it says updated, upgraded. That's neat.
Yeah, it's more opened up. One of the things that Michael had suggested too is, maybe even turning in some of the windows into doors, just to make that thing a lot more open, let more light in and so on. So, yeah.
In this winter time, we're going to plan to actually tear out those windows and the doorways of the shelter house just to open it up so it gets used. I think the initial idea of blocking it off was to encourage people to rent it, but that really didn't happen at all. So now it just kind of sits there stagnant. So I think we'll be looking at tearing out the doors and the windows, which are placed in afterwards, just to make it more open and actually get some use out of it.
So what's our next step on this then, in terms of prioritizing, funding, timing? I mean, like you said, Mike, a master plan is, long-term. Do we need some kind of a session where we kind of try to go through and prioritize, or Adam says, well, we can pick off these things pretty easily, or, some of these things like a walking path, it seems like that would be something that people would recognize right away, I don't know.
Well, I've been a proponent of a new gatehouse for a long time, and we already have that in the budget, and have now verified that it's in the right spot. So that's one thing that I think we should move forward with now, and get some bids out there and so on, and then from there, indeed, let's look at what's going to be number 2, number 3.
Yeah, I think the gatehouse should be the first priority. It is the entrance to the park and the first thing you see, and that one's been in bad condition for the past decade. So I would recommend starting off with the gatehouse, and then really I think the top 3 priorities would be the gatehouse, expanding and widening the boat ramp, even if we didn't necessarily do the rest of the asphalt and concrete in the park, just to allow more room on there. I think we could do that without necessarily taking on all the other asphalting projects. And then the bathhouse, I think that's the big 3 is the gatehouse, being able to increase the turnover rate at the boats, and then the bathhouse, I think, would be the big 3 there.
But beyond that, I think we should still also establish the priorities. I don't
Right.
disagree with that on those top three, but, and whether that's a workshop, it's probably too much to do right this second, but workshop, I think, have the board review the presentation and start giving some thoughts as to how each of us would prioritize it, and then have a workshop session to iron that out. And then Deb can put together the final executive report and incorporate the board's preferred phasing plan on it. And then I think it ultimately should be adopted by the board, so that it sort of has that seal of approval that, yes, this is the plan that we're trying to work from. And of
I
course,
think
the
we
board
need to incorporate the survey input that we got from the freeholders as well. You know, and try to make that gel with just so we're all aware of that information.
I
Yep.
think workshop would be good, because Adam, the things you named off were, you know, the boat thing and the restroom building are like huge price tags. So that's where I think we have to give some thought to balancing. People can see that we're making improvements and they're using them, you know, and, you know, like we could bite this thing off for 15,000 or, you know, I mean, I just think a workshop would be good to kind of go through that.
Well, we can send out the PowerPoint to everybody once I get that from Deb in the PDF format, and that'll give everybody a chance to digest that. Then we can set up whether we want to, you know, send your thoughts to me or back to the park master plan task group, and we can kind of compile that information together. But we'll go ahead and start off with sending out the PDF there, get everybody to digest that, see what they're thinking, and then figure out how to integrate that into the final plan.
That sounds good. Everybody okay with that?
Yep, we're good.
Thank you, Deb.
Deb, thank you
very
so
welcome.
much.
Yeah,
That was
great job, Deb.
a very delightful presentation. It's fun to think of the possibilities.
That's the best part. And it's more fun than when you get to cut the ribbon. So
Oh, well, there you
that's even
go.
better.
All right. Well,
My pleasure.
I'm certain that you probably not care to listen to the rest of our agenda, but you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. That brings us to the treasurer's report, Mr. Blackwell.
Okay. Let's see here. $12,601 in income, $46,916 in expenses. So a total net income negative $34,314. It is September, so that kind of, I like the charts that you're including. Deborah, are you doing those? Are you adding those charts?
No, but I suggested it to Adam that we do that.
Very
Yeah,
well.
Deb suggested it, and then we incorporated them into there.
Yeah, okay. So I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at the allowance of vouchers, but if so, I'll entertain a motion to approve the September. Oh, sorry.
I did have a question, and Adam, I should have emailed this to you, and I just went through and kind of highlighted the big variances, and most of them I know and understand, but I'm wondering if there's some kind of misclassification. That 6240 buildings and grounds is like up $7,000, and then we've got a building and grounds expense 6510 that's down 6,000. They kind of offset. It's not a big deal. I don't know what the difference is between them, but anyway, just in going through it, looks a little off.
One of the buildings and grounds is for repairs that we hire out, and then the other one is for just maintenance items that we were buying for ourselves that we do in-house.
Okay. And that other professional secretarial service, 6,350, we only spent $440 this year. Last year we spent $4,500. So that's good. Our expenses down, but I was kind of pushing myself to think, what was that?
For the other professional and secretarial services?
The year before, yeah. But
I have to go back and look at that. I can get that to you afterwards.
It's not that much, but I like the additional income in the dredging, but you kind of got to look at it with the offset of the expense. So net, we maybe got like $5,000 in additional off of that, but anyway.
Okay.
Michael Klitzing, did you have something? Did I see your
I was
hand up?
going to move to approve the claims as presented.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made to approve and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, Michael K.,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Les,
Aye.
Deborah, Lady Man,
Yes, aye.
Pam.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye, so motion carries. I don't have the agenda in front of me. What,
We're at CD renewal, cash out CD number 37, general fund
Okay.
CD 37, yada, yada.
yes, I believe it was the finance committee that approved that we cashed the $35,000 CD that is due today. It's matures today. However, we only need $24,387 to get that down to 200,000. So I guess I'll just open it up to the board. If we leave the remaining almost $11,000 in a CD, or put that in the checking account, or pay down the truck even more.
Was the total, I thought the total purchase on the truck was 235, was it not?
It
The
was.
total purchase was 235, yeah, and we had the 200,000 budgeted for the bond revenues, and then the additional 35,000 we talked to
So-
the finance committee utilizing this.
I just thought that we basically pay ourselves back that 12,000, whatever we've already paid. You know what I'm saying? That we would pay ourselves back for what we've paid off on that note so far, and use
Okay.
that 35, so we would use it all. That was my thinking of what we decided to do, but
Yes, I would just recommend that we go ahead and cash out that general fund CD for the $35,000 instead of renewing it. Then once we get our bond proceeds, we'll be able to go ahead and pay off that truck loan as we planned.
What is our anticipation of getting the bond proceeds?
What was that?
When do we anticipate getting the bond proceeds?
So the bond sale is actually going to start on November 9th. So we should have it by the end of November.
Okay.
Pretty crazy how quickly it all came up and too ahead to happen. So
I think we can pay ourselves back. It shouldn't be an issue. I mean, it's just some journal entries.
So that's what I said. Let's just put it back in the checking account.
mhm.
Yeah. So, okay. So I would entertain a motion that we cash CD 3. Let me write it. Let's see here. Boy, the printing is so small.
I got you. 37103036, otherwise known as the general fund CD.
Thank you.
Wearing my
I'll make
glasses.
that motion. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? None, no discussion. All in favor? Michael K.
Aye.
Just going around the horn here. Laura,
Aye.
Les,
Aye.
Debbie,
Aye.
Pam,
Aye.
I'm an aye. Motion carries. Okay.
You want me to help you with the agenda, Mike? The item D is resolution 10-2007, which is the adoption of the 2021 annual budget and statement of salaries and wages, DLGF Form 4.
Right. So would you like for me to go over the budget again? This would be like it's June, July, August, September. This would be.
No.
No, thank
I
you.
move to approve the budget as presented.
Can we get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion is, let me go back and read what that was that she just read. So resolution 1020-07, 2021 budget and statement of salaries and wages, DLGF Form 4. We've got a motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Michael K.
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Les,
Aye.
Debbie,
Aye.
Pam,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Motion carries. Glad I didn't have to read that again.
Okay, Mike, are you looking at an agenda or you need me to do E? Okay, that's the last one.
Tell me what it is. I've got 2 screens open. I can't have 3.
Oh, okay. The E under the treasurer's report is resolution 10-2008, 2021 fees and charges.
Oh, has everybody had a chance to look at those? You going to make a motion again, Michael K?
I'd love to increase the fees even further, but I'll move to approve.
You get man after my own heart.
I thought the same thing. I looked at it and I thought we were going to increase something, but
We had a little bit of discussion. We don't have to pass this resolution
I mean,
now. So if we
yeah,
would
we
like
did
to raise the
increase-
fees, we have
Yeah.
sent out the information that shows the maximum fee that we can raise it. There wasn't a lot of wiggle room in the boat passes, but there's a little bit that we can raise. Currently, it's resident motorboat $70, for non-residents $135. But if we would like, everybody should have the information with the maximum fees, so we can table this resolution, shoot some emails back and forth, and then propose something in November or December.
I think with the fullness
I'd
of
like to
the
suggest we do that.
fullness of the agenda, I think that would be a prudent move. It's after
do.
7 already. Everybody okay with that?
And what I
Let's
would recommend,
go ahead.
and what I would recommend too, that we especially look at the non-resident fees.
Mhm.
That's where my preference would be in some of those rate increases, but I support tabling it.
Well, and the other thing, yeah, I'll have to go back and look at that maximum, but to me, we just looked at a master plan that's very expensive, and I just, you guys all know my views. I think we got to eke it up a little bit every year. Someone just really, explodes when we don't take it up. And then there was some discussion about those the leases too. So anyway, I was surprised when I got this and nothing had gone up.
Okay.
The lease payments, there are some people that live on the water and still pay a sublease. We really got to be careful on that. Pam, that's at your district.
Yes.
I would take caution in looking at that, not to say it's off the table. I'm surprised Les isn't bringing up the wakeboard boats.
Well, we already talked about all that before.
I'm going to.
I second.
Well, I guess the more appropriate term is that we postpone this. We're going to come back to it. So if everybody's okay, Les, you want to talk wakeboards? Or you?
Well, I can do that when we have the discussion, but I wanted to note that here a while back, Michael put together a pretty good little document about fees.
True.
And it might be good to recirculate that, because I found it to be very informative, and it'll give us a good base as we go forward. And as I try to make my case for wakeboards.
That's a great point. Michael, you can do that with some ease.
Yeah, and I think Adam actually updated it, so he'll get it out.
Okay, yes, that's right. Okay. Well, Adam, maybe you can recirculate that, as well as the, if you don't mind, the fees.
Will do.
Any other info.
All right.
Okay, very good. All right, moving on. If everybody's okay with that, postponement brings us to number 6, which is board meeting dates. And it is wrong on your agenda. It says resolution 10-1909, but in the packet, it says the correct date, and that is correct resolution number, which is 10-2009, just for clarification. I mean, dumb little thing, but silly things I notice. And it does say in the resolution 2 other cleanups. It says that the annual meeting will be February 25th, 2020, but that should be 2021. Okay, just a little housekeeping. And then it also said we also need to change Sue Miller's name to Debbie Ladyman's name. We must have been using an old template. So I don't think Sue Miller wants to come to our board meetings anymore.
We'll get that updated.
Okay. So we went over this pretty carefully last time. Unless anybody's had any drastic thoughts since, I would ask for a motion to approve resolution 10-2009 with the corrections noted.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, don't fight over it. Debbie, you make the motion. Laura, would you second it? Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? There being none, are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay, Michael K,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Michael B,
Aye.
Les,
Aye.
Debbie,
Aye.
and I too am an aye. Motion carries. All right, that brings us to the manager's report. Adam?
All right, first up, we have our barge operations update. We have ended the barge operations on the water for the season. We were able to finish the Dorothy Lane dredging the last week of September. So Dorothy Lane is done, so we'll not need to go back up there next year. Total for year was 7,650 cubic yards removed. From Dorothy Lane, removed 5,500 cubic yards. It was just kind of a slow year with how far we had to trek up the creek. I know there was some discussion in the last meeting that I was asked to bring up regarding equipment repairs. We did incur total cost for equipment repairs in the area. It's really about $3,700. We did have a repair from a barge puncture on the large barge. We had quotes from underwater divers around 16,000, so we were able to actually do that in-house with some local talent. We ended up fixing that for $1,900 to patch the barge on there. Then on the small barge, when there was the accident, we actually had to redo the wiring on the barge, motors itself for the small one. That repair bill came out to $1,781. So that's pretty much the damage that was from there. A lot of that, I mean, is besides the accident that we had, the other stuff like lower units, I mean, a lot of that's kind of wear and tear items. There was a lot of issues, especially towards the end of the year when the water was down, because there's so much underwater debris that you don't see as far as logs. I think that's what caused some of the issues with the steering on the large boat, just not seeing underwater stuff. Glad to be done up there. We will be looking at this winter time, actually taking off the small motors from the small barge and sending them into either Pine Grove or Denny's Marine to actually have them fully gone through. We want to put new fuel injectors in them, new water pumps. Those motors get run very hard. I mean, they're made for small pontoon boats, and they're powering that barge for years. So we're going to look at taking those motors off and sending them in just to get some preventative maintenance done, kind of in advance before anything else major going on. The only other thing is the push boat for the large barge. We do have a bent drive shaft. We actually replace those about every 2 years, about $1,000 for the steel drive shafts. So that's kind of a wear and tear item as well. And those just get bent because you have a 24-inch bronze prop under there that ends up hitting logs and debris getting sucked in the shallow areas. So we'll be replacing that as well. So nothing major as far as the equipment that's continuing to go on. I know there's some discussion previously about utilizing insurance. Our deductible is $2,000 for insurance. When I was talking with Les, he said most of this stuff seems to be pretty much wear and tear, general maintenance items. He said if we were going down the creek and hit a tree and knocked an entire motor off and lost that, that'd be something that we could go in and claim. But as far as doing repairs like lower units and some of the other stuff, he said they would really consider that just kind of general maintenance items.
And you were talking with Lance Eberly, not Les, correct?
Sorry,
You might have missed.
Yeah.
Lance Everly, yeah.
Les is like, what?
Yeah, I didn't say
I
that.
caught that.
Yeah.
I knew what he meant. I knew
Yeah,
what he
Yeah, I
Lance
did too.
Everly, sorry. Got it used to these 6 o'clock meetings again.
I know.
And then we did have a little bit of repairs on the excavator. We had to replace some fuel lines. Again, I mean, it's just an aging excavator. That type of stuff happens just to get repairs. So the barge operation is off the water. We have the push boat on land. The small barge is still there because we will actually be bringing that around so we can take off the motors once we get some plans to send those in. So we are in that. For the sediment management project update, we've actually received 3 out of 4 of our permits already, which is really nice. We got both of ours from Indiana Department of Environmental Management, which is our Rule 5 permit, which actually allowed for the land disturbance at the upland site, the land-based site. And we got our 401 water quality permit, which allows us to place the sediment and further return water coming out of the site to the lake. We just recently, as in last week, got our Army Corps of Engineers, what's called a nationwide permit, which would allow us to place the sediment in the pond when we decide to do it in the creation of a wetland, and then also for the dredging project itself, for the dredging to go on. The only permit that we have not received yet is the DNR permit called construction in a floodway that actually only impacts the overflow pond, which we do not believe we'll be using this time around anyways. So that should come in pretty quick now that all the other permits are in place, but that would not impact us as far as starting the operation and utilizing the upland site. We have begun excavating at the site at the beginning of this month. We did go in and put all of our silt fencing around for the requirements for our stormwater management plan. And we've actually implemented our construction entrance there. So that's going good. The excavation is actually going pretty good. We're moving along. There will be some equipment needs in-house, which will ultimately be cheaper for us to rent some equipment and do it rather than contracting out the work. Those are probably going to be a large dozer here down the line once we get into actually grading out the pond itself. For the dozer that we're looking right around $6,000 for a month rental. If you rent for 3 weeks, you get the 4th week free. So I'd recommend that we do that. Also, if it keeps raining, it seems like as soon as we start doing land work, it just keeps raining. So if we do continue to get all the rain, it really kind of holds water on that site. So ultimately, once we're actually down in the bottom and once we start forming the berms around the side, we may look into renting a tracked dump truck just because it is so muddy over there right now. Looking at that, it's about $4,000 a week or $12,000 for a full month rental. I've talked with McAllister Rental and Wilson Equipment, which are the 2 big equipment rental companies around here. So we're probably looking at renting one of those here in a little bit down the road once we're into the grading aspect of it. We won't need it if the rain stops, but it seems to start, and I think last year it didn't stop till about June. So we'll see how that goes. So I would like to talk to the board, since there are decent prices for purchasing or for renting the equipment, about either getting a blanket approval for that amount at this moment, or just realize that when we do rent them, I'll reach out to Mike and or Pam for that. We did know in the past I would have to rent some equipment for this project to continue to do most of it in-house. We're looking at doing about 80% completion of the site in-house, with the remaining finished grading, stabilization, and weir structure creation would be in the contract with the dredging contractor. I believe there's also some questions about drainage as well, and we actually did implement into our construction documents essentially a field tile system that will be at the bottom of that entire basin there that will tie into a wet well. So we'll actually be able to go and put a sump pump in a wet well down to a central lower storage area. So we'll be able to increase the drying. If we do get a lot of wet areas, most of the water eventually will trickle down, so we can pump that out over the summertime to speed up the process of drying. So I guess if there's, I don't know if I should just get approval now or just make you guys aware of it. That would be contacting Mike when it is time to rent that. Yes, Deb?
So it sounds to me like you definitely need $6,000 for a month for a dozer, and then you said maybe $4,000 a week for a second dump truck. Is that?
It'd be $12,000 for the month for a tracked dump truck, and really that's going to depend on if it keeps raining. We've had to run one before about 2 years ago, before we had our new one. At our other disposal sites, you have gravel roads, and then it's actually really well drained. So there's not a need for that, but over there, like just the last rains that we've been having, it just kind of holds water on top of that flat field. So really notice when we're running these dump trucks around, it's really kind of rutting it out and sinking in some. So if we continue to get the rain, we will have to look at getting a tracked vehicle just so we can continue moving the dirt around.
So you're saying that this new dump truck we got won't do it?
It's working for now, and the capacity on these is, it's about triple the capacity on our dump truck than the tracked ones. It's just every now and then you're gonna have to rent that type of equipment just from Mother Nature. Yeah. So
because it's lighter weight or something like that.
It's lighter weight, and then the weights just spread out on the tracks instead of on the 6 wheels. They're wide tracked instruments, so they're made for those swampy type areas there.
Big snowshoe,
Yeah, exactly. Snowshoe effect, so it can actually move through that dirt. So there will be the potential to rent that if it keeps raining. If it dries up a little bit and we're not getting these rains every week, then it won't be an issue. But if it keeps raining, then then we are going to have to rent that.
So you're talking about maybe like $20,000 between those two. You're
I would say
thinking,
overall between the two, once you talk about shipping and stuff, probably about $20,000.
I think if you probably look at the budget and where you think we're going to come in, and just from our previous conversation that we, are going to reimburse ourselves for the total of the truck. My guess is, I haven't looked at it, but we've probably got the room in the budget somewhere just with the additional revenues. Be my thought.
We've budgeted about $2,000 or $200,000 for the disposal site prep, and we knew in discussion beforehand that we would have to rent some equipment for that. We're actually looking really good for the budget right now, and are kind of getting into the slow time of the season. We're still expecting about $150,000 in tax revenue. So I think it's going to be a very healthy year budget wise and cash wise. I don't think it'll be an issue finding that in the budget.
Well, short of a major monsoon, I did talk with Adam a little bit about should we delay just a bit, but it may be that doesn't help us. It just gets us into worse, and the land is not good if we can't work it. So I would say, this is known stuff. These aren't surprises.
Mm-hmm.
What do you all think?
I think it's got fine.
Yeah, I think we just got to go for it. And the risk that you do pushing, if we actually did get a freeze, you can't really do earthwork when the soil is frozen, because then it becomes one giant ice cube. So either push it now or you wait till the springtime. And if anything like last year, the springtime was just, monsoon.
Bad. Yeah. I think we got to keep pushing.
That's kind of my plan.
Is 20,000 enough? Is 20,000 the right dollar amount? Do we need to leave a little wiggle room? Because what I'm proposing is a motion not to exceed X.
I mean, we could do a little wiggle room in there. I think $20,000 would be a good dollar amount with shipping. If we made it say not to exceed $22,000, I think that would be more than enough to encompass any equipment rentals that we would need.
Okay. So
okay, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to authorize Adam to enter into lease for equipment for the new pond up to.
Oh, we lost Michael.
Authorize up to $22,000 with a report back to the board.
Okay. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Les. All right. It has been moved and seconded that we authorize Adam to an amount up to $22,000 for these equipment needs. Is there any further discussion or comment?
Just one. I mean, are you going to pull that out of debt service loan? I mean, because that's going to exceed just about every category.
Well, we have the money in the sediment management line item. So what we'll do is we'll put it into equipment rental, since that's a category. Then we'll just take money out from the sediment management category where all the bond proceeds will be.
What number is that?
Oh, we pull it up here real quick.
That's what I was trying to find.
It is $67.50.
Oh, well, okay. Money that we don't have yet.
Well, that'll be the bond proceeds, which we will be getting.
Okay, so you won't need that money till after November 9, or till after the end of November.
The bond money?
I see that we have that's our bond proceeds, correct?
Yeah, we won't have that until December, but I mean, we have plenty of money in the banks right now, and with the tax revenue coming in to cover that cost. And
the rental cost, yes.
Yeah, cover the rental cost, and we do have it in the budget there, so we'll be well within the budget for that.
Okay,
that'll be a lot cheaper to knock that out in house, because that's less work that we have to contract out. So
I appreciate you saving our money.
There you go. Okay, we've got a motion on the table and a second on that motion to allow Adam to rent equipment not to exceed $22,000. Is there any further discussion? All right, if there being none, let's take a voice vote. Michael Kay?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
I almost said Alex. Mike Blackwell?
Aye.
Les?
Aye.
Deborah?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
all right, last thing. Well, I guess I have two more things. One is the bonding update. The process has been actually going really well. We did just have yesterday about a 2-hour call with S&P for our bond rating, which was it was like a GRE exam again coming in there. We were pretty in depth into the financials. But our bond counsel and finance counsel said they all think it went really well. There were a couple follow-up questions from S&P, which were resubmitted to them today. That was my first time ever going through the process like that. So it was pretty interesting, but I did think it went very well. So we will have the bond rating here shortly. The bond sale, we actually advertised yesterday in the Brown County, Monroe County papers, and this Friday, Indianapolis, and we'll be advertising again next week in both of them as well to set our advertising requirements for the bond sale. So the bond sale will actually be on November 9th. I have to go back and look at the papers, but I believe the closing was right around November 20th or 25th, right in that range. So we will have those proceeds there. So the money will be good to go. So that's where we're at with the bonding. There will be some reporting requirements going on with our initial contract with Baker Tilly. They would be our reporting agent. Annual reports primarily that would go out to any of the bond buyers is really just our annual report. So there's not an additional report necessarily that would need to be created. We would use our end of year financial reports for the reporting. There's also going to be, I'm going to have Deb on a call with me recently to kind of talk about any type of requirements that we would have for additional reporting, or if there's any major change to the district that would trigger reporting requirements, just so we have a little bit of knowledge on that between myself and a board member. So that's going good. It's crazy that everything's actually coming to a head and we're breaking ground. So it's pretty awesome. Finally, we have our 2021 board election update. We have 2 districts up for election, District 1 and 4, which will be Michael Klitzing and Laura Schell. We will be advertising next Wednesday in the paper as required for the election, and we'll be sending out election postcards next week to the 2 districts. I know I've had some interest from Laura, and I sent her some paper, and Michael, we're really hoping you stick around on this one. So I will send out that information and we'll proceed with that. Again, the election would be at our February meeting. So we're moving along with that, and that's really all I have for the manager's report.
Thank you. Any questions for Adam? All right. That brings us to public comment. Alex, are we dialed in, and do you have some things for us, or Adam, are you taking care of that? You guys have kind of tennis balled that back and forth some. He got a workout last time, so I don't know.
Let me pull up
I've got it up. I can
Okay.
take it if you want.
All right.
I'm going to read them off.
Oh, there you are, Alex. I didn't even know if you were here.
I've been muted. I've been staying quiet.
Yeah, if you're going to read them off, and I'll do some answering, Alex.
Okay. So I don't think that Kevin Fagan meant to comment at all. So I'm going to go with Michael Kaffour's, and it's a little long, so I'm just going to read it word for
You
word.
didn't like that.
Wait a minute. What happened with Kevin?
Oh, he said never, and then he said ignore previous.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
And that was it. So
Got it.
I'm taking that as a no comment. But for Michael Kaffour, I'm going to read through word for word what he typed in this chat. So he said, I hear the very nice plans for the public portion of the lake sounds great, and yet out of the dredging budget, $235,000 is going to a dump truck instead of dredging activity because you don't want to pay for the truck with reserves. Certain areas of the lake, including ours, the Far East Bay, are not being dredged. Last meeting, our rep, Pam Dugan, who had communicated to us that she agreed that the truck should not be a deduction from the dredging budget, which would allow more money for dredging the lake, said she had been persuaded that the truck should be purchased with the dredging budget. We'd like an explanation of why certain areas of the lake owned by freeholders that desperately need dredging are not being attended to with care in the dredging program. While there's discussion of extensive changes to public area, please explain. And then the last bit is, what was so persuasive, and how do you justify spending large sums of money on public areas while not dredging areas owned by freeholders?
I really think the whole goal of this initial project from the beginning was to focus on areas that benefit the freeholders as a whole and lake users as a whole, rather than areas that aren't openly utilized for recreation. So I really think that's kind of driven the focus on why we were looking at the open lake sites initially. The dump truck had always been planned to be paid for in the bonding. We did take out that loan early on so we could get it on the ground quicker, but the plan had always been to reimburse that from the bonding proceeds. We still believe with the proceeds that we will get, we'll be able to remove that 120,000 cubic yard mark into the upland site. So I don't see that there's any reduction in our overall removal goal of sediment that we're planning on. I think we'll still be able to get that 120,000 with the monies that we have left and fully utilize the upland site.
And Debbie had, as to your persuasion question, Michael, Debbie was as a retired accountant with BKD, and I trust her instincts. And I did ask that question, as you know, and I asked it largely because of your concern. But I will go back to Debbie's rationale that we should not be spending down our reserves, and we will still be able to accomplish our goals. And Debbie, if you have anything other than that to add, this does keep coming up, and I'd like to put it to rest.
Well, I think last time we met, and I think Adam addressed it as well. I mean, I think it fits within the overall plan to make, we can't take the lake back to where it was in 1960. And we're spending all the money that we can to make it available and benefit all freeholders. So, we budget that way. That's been the plan for that long. And we do need reserves. I mean, we're supposed to have reserves anywhere from 6 months to 12 months operating budget. And our operating budget without this big thing is about $600,000. So you guys might look at the balance sheet and think we're flush with cash, but we're not.
Thank you. Alex?
So Kevin Fagan confirmed that he has no comment at this time. And then Michael Kaffour posed another question. Is there now concern that there is not adequate area for silt from the dredging project and that only a couple zones may be dredged? What was the objection to private funding for the East Bay dredging?
I think the point's always been to focus on the zones 1 and 2. So I'm not sure.
There's no objection to private funding, but what I will remind you, Michael, and other neighbors of our immediate neighbors is that Malcolm's quest and Kathy's quest this summer, which I was fine with, was to gauge interest in private contributions in the future, should we be able to consider doing some other areas. Doing our area would mean putting number 5 ahead of other recommended engineering suggestions in sequential fashion. So what needs clarified, and I actually am going to speak with Malcolm tomorrow morning, is the fact that they were merely only gauging future interest. There was no promise of that would have had to be a board vetted decision to add any other zones, whether it be ours, whether it be 3 or 4, and then there's space, etc. So there has been some miscommunication there. And I hope to reconcile that with Malcolm, and maybe he can further clarify that with you. But there was no plan to actually do anything but what we have scheduled to start, and that's zones 1 and 2.
I'll just add something there. I mean, the board knows that I've expressed my interest in having, a policy of having so much money in the bank before you put a shovel in the ground. And in my conversation with Malcolm and Kathy, when they presented it to me, it's great if you say, well, we think we would have people that would contribute. Well, where's the money? It really would have to be a concerted effort and money available. We're constrained by our funding and what we can afford as a district. And we're also very much constrained by where we can deposit sediment. And right now, what we have available, and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, the acreage, the place that we have available right now, I mean, we're going to fill it up by doing what we've got on our plan. Is that true?
Correct. And yeah, and the plan is always,
We don't have anywhere else to put it.
yeah, the plan is to empty out that disposal site and reuse it. So I think there'll be plenty of opportunities in the future to reutilize the site. And if individual areas want to pony up money at that point for more dredging, I don't think there'd be any issue from the board in the future for utilizing that. I just think.
Well, I think that's a board discussion. I've talked with you a little bit, I think it will be a controversial topic amongst the board members. I don't care if it's tomorrow or 3 years from now, you're always going to be having to weigh out who gets the cost, the benefit. There are going to be people unhappy in another zone. What if you have two zones pony up the money at the same time? I mean, these are potentially very difficult scenarios for the board, but that's how it has to be vetted. It won't just be a, hey, we've got the money. That it has to be decided in the public view and by the laws that under which we are governed. So I think that's where some major misunderstanding has occurred. You don't just show up with a check and get your area dug out.
Right.
Private dredging around your dock, yes, that's a little different, but main areas, this is a whole new can of worms. So please understand that. Alex?
I have no further comment at this time.
All right. Anybody else from the board? Any thoughts, extras, add-ons? All right, you guys have been very patient. It's late. I know I'm starving. The next meeting, we have a tentative meeting scheduled. This is an extra. It's Thursday, November the 19th, 2020, 6 o'clock. Location to be determined per wherever we are at that time with COVID regulations and state mandates. As you know, that's ever changing. We also might not need that meeting, but I think Adam feels that we will with the bond sale, et cetera. So
yeah, I think we're put it on there tentatively just in case we are able to have our bids out for the project by then and see where we are at in the bond. And so we may not necessarily have it, but I think it's appropriate that we have something scheduled in case we need to take.
And I think it would be fairly brief if we do need to have it. I don't anticipate it being nearly the length of this meeting, just for your information.
I know Laura did before we closed. Pam, Laura did have something that she would like to say as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. Okay. Well, the second meeting is a truly scheduled meeting, and that's our December 17th, 2020 meeting, 6 o'clock. We've kind of stabilized back to 6 as per what the board was requesting. And that's also a location to be determined, and we'll see where we are at that time. Laura, I'm sorry if I missed you. Thank you, Adam.
I just have a quick comment and then a quick statement, and then we'll move on. I put out word in the spring that we were retiring the barge. John has put in 15 years and he's tired. So we have retired the barge. We've tried to sell it unsuccessfully, but I will be giving Adam a list of contacts for people that he will be putting in constant contact to contact these companies about getting their docks and lifts out for the season. So Adam, I will get that to you in the morning and you can send that out to all lake residents, but we are not doing any barge business.
All right. Well, we thank you for a lot of years and one new hip on John.
Yes.
Probably somewhat related to that kind of work, which is very thankless, I'm sure. So, all right. I would entertain. Yes, Les.
Just one follow-up. I mean, is there any merit? Maybe this is a crazy idea, but
What I was thinking.
Board want to buy it and make a bunch of money out on the deal, or is it just not feasible?
How about an item for a future agenda?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a good idea. It just happened to.
You guys sleep on it, and if we want it on the agenda, let me know, and we'll talk about it at a future meeting. It may be a good idea. I don't know. That's what we always do.
I think Adam, you would just have to talk to Laura about it and see if you think it's a piece of equipment that we could use and what the cost would be, and make a recommendation.
I think getting the dock and lift work is just a whole lot of liability and parts and time from
I think it's more than Adam needs at this point. I think it's
we're strapped.
As I said, sleep on it. Les, I don't disagree. It's worth considering. If anybody wants to think on it and put it forth in another meeting in the not too distant future, that'd be great. All right.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Michael K. I can count on you. Les is seconded. All those in favor, we'll quickly go. Michael K.
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Mike B? Mike B? Oh, I can't hear you. All right, sorry. I can read lips.
Aye,
He said aye. Les,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
and I too am an aye. You guys have a great evening. Thank you for your long period of time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good meeting you.
Good night,
Thank you. We'll
everybody.
see you all.